go get your coats. Go ahead, because I don't want anybody to be like ridiculously cold, as it is ridiculously cold outside. So just go ahead. I won't miss anything at all.
This one, oh, 17. I always get lost here, so I don't think I'm made for jail. So let's get our coat. So we have a lot of stuff in our pockets. I'll get rid of some stuff. This is useful. Body armor. Usually I would drink some Doobie Energy, since they are sponsoring me. So it is pretty cool.
Absolutely, they would just like absolutely just assault and strike prisoners with absolutely no repercussions, whenever and however they wished. And what's interesting is the bloody code was actually outlawed in Canada in 1820, but was enforced here until the 1970s. And so we can't display all the weapons that the guards used. Some of them are a little too brutal. But one of them was this old leather arm restraint / straight jacket, which is what that thing is up there. That is the old leather arm restraint there. So we feel that one's okay to display. It's not as nasty as like the chains with hooks on it or anything like that. The room you're standing inside of, this was where friends and family of the prisoners would come and visit them. And they would speak to the prisoners through this door right here. So you sit on the stool and you speak to them right through this very window. It's absolutely the original door right here. And so, without further ado, let's rock and roll. I hope you don't mind. I will be bringing along my microphone. And let's rock and roll. Follow me, please. Okay. Thank you. All right. Perfect. So, this is a fully operational and brutal, bloody, nasty, gross as hell jail up until 72. And then what happened was we shut it down in 1972, and then we opened it as a hostel 1 year later. Yeah. Just took 10 months to clean. And then that's when they came out as a hostel. And what happened was, though, was then in 1980, Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau wrote this amazing letter about how amazing this place is as a hostel. And this is the letter right here. So you're welcome to check it out a little bit later if you like. It's in both official languages. as for some reason Pierre Trudeau never wrote a letter about how awesome this place was. It was a nasty jail. All right, Paul, me, I'll leave you over here kindly. Okay. Okay. All right. So, welcome everyone. So, when this was the old jail, what happened was this part of the jail here. This was known as the family jail. And what they used to do was, if you were a prisoner and you were sent to jail, but you had a family, they didn't believe that separating the family unit was a very good idea, so they just brought you and your whole family. They just threw you all into jail, which is a very counterproductive means of social reform, if you ask me. And then what happened was they did this down here through to the year 1920. When it was after 1920 when they said, hey, this is actually a pretty terrible idea. So then they made this part of the jail the chapel area. And they often found that prisoners would join the church simply as a means of getting out of their cells for an extra hour of the day. The two youngest prisoners, though, to ever be sentenced to jail, though, were two young brothers. They were ages 7 and 8. And they were sentenced for the capital crime of murder. And that was one of the only times when they did not bring in the whole family unit, they just brought in the boys. And there was no Youth Protective Services Act back in the 19th century, so the boys were tried and convicted like adults, which is not awesome. And they were here for 4.5 years. And they had endured such a terrible, terrible time that when they were released 4.5 years later, their parents did not even recognize them. They looked like they were 40. But on the flip side, the oldest prisoner to ever be sent to jail was an 87-year-old man named Robert Brown, and he was put in for 4 days for drunkenness. So I imagine he used as a point of pride, and the oldest man ever stayed here, and all he did was get quite drunk. His name is commemorated in room 403, named Robert Brown. But actually, all the names on all the cells are real people who stayed here for real crimes. One of the most interesting ones is on room 622. Miss Thomas. She went to jail for keeping a disorderly house. Yes, went to jail for being messy. That's it. She was just sent to jail. So if my mom were taking this tour, she would scratch out Miss Thomas and put Simon right there, very bold letters, because I'm a messy guy. So, but not all of the crimes that people went to jail for were super evil. Some of them were just plain funny. Like you could go to jail for swearing. That's it, just swearing, you could be sent to jail. Another weird old British law, you can go to jail if you are found walking suspiciously down the street carrying a dead fish. Yeah, that's it, absolutely real. So for many reasons, I am glad that none of you are carrying a dead fish right now. Thank you, or that I know of. Another weird one, you can go to jail for furious driving. Yeah, just road rage. I'm like, everyone would go to jail then if that were still in the play today. And the other weird one, you can go to jail if you are found riding your bicycle and eating an apple at the same time. These are very weird British laws. One last one, you can go to jail if you are found raiding a shipwreck. So please leave Ottawa shipwrecks alone. Well, about the jail itself, structurally, what the Brits used to do when they used to build and design their jails back in the 18th and 19th centuries was they adopted the philosophy and teaching of the British philosopher and social theorist whose name was Jeremy Bentham. And he was very fascinated by the idea of prisons and the psychology of prisons, so he devised and developed this thing called the panopticon, which, yes, does sound like Decepticon. And the panopticon is the concept of building a giant tower in the middle of a prison colony and installing mirrors all around it so that the prisoners would feel as though they were being watched at all times, even if they can't actually see the guard force itself. Kind of like Google, if you think about it. So they adopted the panopticon here, though without mirrors, they adopted it here by sound, hence the ceilings. These are called bell curve ceilings or drum cell ceilings meant to trap and capture sound. So when I do this, They can be heard all the way down. So that is why it's so loud and echoey here at night all of the time as well. And they use the ceilings to monitor the prisoners in case of any kind of revenge or malfeasance, or if they came here for the capital crime of swearing as well. And if everyone could check it out, beside the kitchen door on the left-hand side right there, you can see the original paddle that's on display. That's a thick piece of cherry wood mounted with a thick piece of leather onto it, and the leather is put onto it so it could withstand the blood as well. And over here in this left-hand corner, I'm not sure if everyone can see it or not, are the original handcuffs from when this was a jail in 1863. And I was doing this tour before, and someone did ask me, "Hey man, can I borrow those for something I'm into?" And I said, "No man, no, stay right where they are." And by the way, we did not have the Roku TV back when it was a jail. That's a rather new addition, which brings up another weird British law. You can't go to jail if you are found watching TV without a license. So I hope all of you have your licenses to watch TV. That's absolutely real. I went to visit my sister in London and turn on TV and said, no, not happening. I'm not going to jail. What? That works. Anyway. And what's more, too, is if you look beside into this wall right here, between the two photographs, you'll see this weird-looking giant black hole in the wall. That's actually a peephole. On the opposite side of it is a small cut in the wall, and the guards will stand on the opposite side of that peephole and look out to survey the family jail through that hole. It's a very interesting feature we were able to originally retain as well. And you got the right idea. And these right here, everybody, are the original bars from back then. Cast iron, built during the Industrial Revolution. So no, we did not get these at IKEA. And this right here, everyone, I mentioned the jails from the 1860s. This is from the 1980s. It just feels like it's also as old as 165 years ago. So come on over here, everyone. I invite you to take a look into the peephole. Right here. I had a game of that. I like that. There we go. From my angle, I legit thought that was a gun. And I was like, whoa.
It looks like a gun, yeah.
Okay. Everyone, yeah, go ahead, get close. I'm going to come real close. Just go, blah, if you wish. Go ahead. Yeah, the best part is most people don't even see this. They walk right past it. It's like weirdly subtle, blended into the mesh. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. All right, and so what I just imagine is someone on the other side of that with a water gun. You know, stop! Oh, I want to lead you up the stairs. Please follow me. Okay. Hey, Gabby.
Noticed that like you reference the numbers, those are the jails, but what are the other ones? There's more like correct, yes. Absolutely right. Those used to be offices.
Oh, a little stuff right here. Please forgive. Sorry about that. Kind of fan of air. Perfect. All right, welcome everyone. These are the original stairs from when this was a jail. This was the stairs they used to escort prisoners to their cells. The prisoners would stay on levels 2, 4, 6, and 8, and the guards would stay on levels 5 and 7. But here's the thing. When the guards stayed here, they would stay here with their families. With all the amenities you could ask for. Heat, beds, kitchens, everything. They stayed for 8-month contracts. And I mentioned the word heat.
That's because the guards enjoyed heat, but the jail itself was never heated. There was never heat at any point in time for any of the prisoners when it was a jail. And I personally am from Ottawa, hence the goofy Canadian accent. Hello. So I can tell you right now that growing up here in Ottawa, our winters are viciously cold. Very, very nastily cold. So much so that I can tell you with confidence that the first 3 words of every Canadian child are, "Fuck, it's cold." Sorry, I just swore. It's off to jail for me. So unfortunately, prisoners really would pass away from hypothermia, pneumonia, and frostbite. Oh, this is not awesome. And I mentioned the word beds. That's because the jail itself never introduced beds for any of the prisoners until 1888. So for 26 years, there were no beds for anyone whatsoever. And even when they did finally introduce beds to the prisoners, it was very sporadic and often just maybe 2 or 3 to share amongst 6 people, which is really gross as well. But the worst part of the jail was level 9. That was the hospital area. The hospital area of the jail was deplorable. It was never clean. There was no care, no investment whatsoever. It was run by female guards who were called matrons, and they acted like unqualified nurses. And they would only to take care of the prisoners at literally arm's length, never get any closer than this. There's no inoculation, no sanitation, and never any anesthesia either, and often led to cruel and unnecessary amputations. So nasty was level 9 that it included the fact that in 1951, the city of Ottawa were building the Mackenzie King Bridge next door, and when the city engineers were digging to install a foundation for the bridge, they dug up and found up to 150 bodies, unfortunately. All ages, often missing limbs, but they attributed the mass grave to people who passed away in the brutal old jail. So with that said, though, the number 1 complaint that prisoners had overall when they did stay here was that they couldn't play cards. Yet they couldn't play poker. That was the number 1 complaint overall, which leads to another weird British law. You can go to jail if you are found gambling in a library. So please, don't gamble in any libraries today. And about these stairs, what's interesting about the stairs is the big doors on level 5 and 7. We, the hostel, installed those. But the original doors is the silhouette you see in the brick right there. You'll notice there's a silhouette of a door right there on both sides. That's actually where the original doors are, right there. So what I just imagine is if you draw a chalk outline on that and knock 3 times, you will see Beetlejuice as well. And also what's fascinating too is you'll notice the stairs. You'll notice these weird looking holes in the stairs. That's actually a very conscious design. It's because the guards wear big black boots and the prisoners wear white shoes. So they use the holes in the stair to see who was coming up and down the stairs at all times, which is a neat kind of idea. And straight down the narrow here, those are the original anti-suicide bars installed in 1863 after an altercation where a guard was thrown from level 9 and plunged to her bloody death at the very bottom. So they installed these anti-suicide bars for safety for all, though mostly what the housekeeping staff and I just use these for is to dry towels. All right. Well, that leads you to level 8. So I'm going to ask everybody to kindly stand on the right-hand side here. That's something I would love to show you. Come on in. There you go. Welcome everyone. So when we shut down the old jail back in 72 and opened it as a hostel, we did make lots of changes to it as a hostel. Like we added heat. We figured you all might like heat. And then beds. We said, hey, let's add beds to make it a hostel. All right, cool. And running water as well. We figured plumbing might be a really nice investment. But one thing we also did though is I find that some of you might be staying in the cells themselves, totally just fine, no pun intended, and some of you might be staying in the dorm rooms, A-okay. But what we did do was for the cells, we changed the lock on the doors. We figured you all might want to be able to lock it from the inside and the outside. You might like that option. But one door we never changed though was this door, and we never changed this. This is the original locking mechanism. This door leads to what we call the museum floor. So this is definitely a museum too. So yeah, this is the door right here. So this is how they would lock it. The latch would stick into a groove in the wall and lock it into place right here. So it's absolutely the original lock and everything, cast iron as can be. And yeah, I just think it might be neat to show you. And this thing has clipped me at least once a week in the hip, so I don't have any feeling. And so I can't give it a slam though because they just freshly painted it because of how many times I've given it a slam. So I just thought you would really appreciate that. So what I'm going to do now, everyone, is I'm going to invite you to check out these first two cells right here on your immediate left and take a look. There you go.
Would you like to have a mic?
No, thank you. No,
All right.
no, appreciate that. I'll just drool right onto it. So that's very sweet of you. That's really a awesome idea. Oh, right. So I'll just stand over here. So yeah, everyone, check out these first two cells. As you can see, they're not the most spacious things in the whole wide world. And what's neat, though, is in everyday regular society, regular single bed mattresses are actually 6 inches wider than these cells are. So that made for a funny phone call because we had to call the company and say, yeah, hi, we need you to make the bed smaller. And they said, what? Nobody wants a smaller bed. What's wrong with you? But it was to fit in there as well. Smaller beds are custom made too. And what's interesting too is that back when it was the old jail, the maximum capacity of prisoners was up to 150 prisoners at one point in time. But the bloody code could easily ignore that, and they did. So much so that they would stuff up to 8 men into this cell. Yes, up to 8 people. So if there's 8 brave souls, join me. Come on in. There you go. Come on in. I think you can make it.
How many?
Oh, we can squeeze one more.
One more.
All right, we made it. All right, well, everyone. So yeah, this begs a lot of questions. How do people sleep? What on top of each other diagonally? Is this how we got the game Tetris? I don't know. And yeah, there was no light or electricity here whatsoever. The men would be living here for 12 hours of the day. And what was in here during all those 12 hours as well? The bucket, which they unpoetically refer to as a honey bucket. So when that grows out, I think we can exit now as well. So yeah, not the most spacious thing in the planet either. We converted most of the cells into sleepable places, but this is one of the only cells that has the original brick contour and everything. We try to retain some of its original stark terribleness. And what's more too is you'll notice about the cell here, the upper echelons are a lot more spacious and airy. That was for some ventilation and circulation, but the bars closer together here are much closer together. You'll notice. And unlike the movies, when you see a jail cell in the movies, they're always wide as a football field, perfect for Tom Cruise to reach out and pick a lock and save the day. Fortunately, not the case here at all. They put the bars closer together so that people really couldn't reach out and pick the lock, and because they used to get children to try and pick the lock. They had smaller arms and beer-drinking slabby guys like me. And these right here, this weird-looking square you see between the cells is the locking mechanism. So the latch would pop out here right here and go and lock into place here. But between every single cell on levels 4 and 6 too, which is quite interesting as well. And they never added window panes to the jail until 1902. So for 50 years, those windows would be absolutely open and exposed for the slicing winds of winter that shot right through. And they only added the window panes because the guards complained that they were a little cold as well. So yeah, I think that's really quite fascinating. And what's kind of awful though, very awful too, was when people went to jail for the capital crime of insanity, just insanity, they would just lock them to the doors and chain them to the doors and leave them out in the hallway and wouldn't even put them into the cells because of their unpredictability. They would just chain them like leaving a dog chained to their house, which is not awesome at all. Now, just before I take you to death row, I'll provide you with a few more weird old British laws as well. You can go to jail if you are found disguised in a forest. Disguised as what? Batman? I don't know. Just disguised in a forest. And another weird one, you can go to jail if you are a member of British Parliament. Don't worry, there's more to it than just that. But if you are a member of British Parliament, it is illegal for you to enter Parliament dressed head to toe in a knight's armor. Yes, you cannot dress like a knight and enter British Parliament. Written in 1313 by Edward II, and that is still the real law to this day. And the last weird British law as well, that it is illegal for you to have pets, and it is illegal if your pets try to go and have sex with any of the pets that belong to the royal family. So if your dog goes near the Queen's corgis, you're going straight to jail. All right, everyone, I'll now lead you to death row. Please follow me. All right. I think one time someone didn't believe me when I told them it was death row. All right. All right. Oh, yes. Good morning, everyone. Check it out. So we're all going to go ahead inside and check it out.
You just one person would be in there?
Oh, God, no. So welcome, everyone. So yeah, I'll stay right here. So everyone, about the ball and chain. Yes, I have received some questions about that. Someone said, hey man, that's some real blood funny stuff. I absolutely agree with you. And another person said, hey man, can I borrow this for something I'm into? And I said, no, that should stay where it is. And on one time I did catch someone trying to play jump rope with it. And I said, no, how about please skip on that? And he said, an interesting choice of words. I said, oh, that's terrible, you're right. let's skip on that. Oh, awful. So, welcome everyone to Death Row. So I'll tell you a little bit about what you're standing inside of. You'll notice the floor is much noisier and creakier than the rest of the jail. The reason for that was two reasons. One was often there was an altercation that would break out here in Old Death Row, so the guards would hear it and they'd be able to come here and assess the situation. The other reason is far more evil. What would happen was prisoner number 4 would stay in that cell, prisoner number 3 would stay in this cell with the ball and chain, and prisoner number 2 would stay in this cell, and prisoner number 1 would stay in this cell right here with the steel cage. Put him in extra isolation so he could reflect upon his sins and really think about why he was here. And then what would happen was the guard would go up to the prisoner who's going to be hanged, place him in heavy chains and shackles and extra chains, and then march him slowly down the hallway here past everybody else as a way of driving home the point, which is quite excessive and unnecessary as well. And they would, in the later 20th century, when hangings dwindled in popularity, shall we say, they made this the family jail, actually. And they would put family members into these one cells of up to 12 people. 4 to 12 people would have to occupy this very cell right here as well. And these latches you see right here on that cell and this one are the original locks and the original latch right here. The handle of that one is broken, but the fact that these two have survived 165 years is pretty awesome as well. And the thing too about Old Death Row here, you might be noticing the windows. They have a third set of bars on them. Those are called visual perception windows. And those are the third set of bars are look that way because they wanted to force the prisoners to have to look up so that they could not plan any escape attempts, because they wouldn't be able to see how far off the ground they are. They wouldn't be able to do any kind of visual measurements or anything like that. And it's interesting about the visual perception windows is that they're still used to this day by the Canadian military as well. And the guards would point out the visual perception windows, and then they'd say to the prisoners, "Hey, things are looking up," which is terrible as well. And I'll tell you now a story about the most famous person who was hanged here. I just realized, though, standing over here, I could hear my own echo. Like, oh, that's really frightening me. So I think I'll stand in this echoey part instead. I'll tell you a story about the most famous person who was hanged here. But a little back history. The national capital city of Canada is Ottawa. Woo! But it didn't always used to be Ottawa. It actually used to be Kingston, Ontario. And for those of you who may not know, Kingston is a small city about 2 hours southwest from here. And it was the capital from 1844 to 1847, when Canada was just a colony. But then what happened was when our forefathers and founding fathers got together and said, hey, we want to make Canada its own country. We want it to grow up finally. So they said we can do that. However, we cannot make Kingston the national capital because it is too close to the United States border. Now, I'm not here to give the states a hard time. I rather love the U.S. I've been to 20 states. But they had some problems in the 19th century, like the Civil War. So Canada said, we can't have our national capital 5 kilometers away from the border. We got to move it on up a little. So they moved the party on up to Ottawa, making Ottawa a little less invadable than Kingston was. But here's the thing. Ottawa, back in the 19th century, though, was lawless. It was nothing but drinking, debauchery, partying, prostitution, total craziness. Like the Ottawa of today. Just kidding. When you grow up here, it's often called the city that fun forgot. Sorry, that's a little mean. And so what happened was, though, because Ottawa's crazy nature, that's why they built this jail. They made it the most archaic, bloody, terrible, grossest place you could imagine. It was so to curb the crime, to stop it, to scale it back. And it worked. Now I was the clean, conservative, forgettable little city that does not know how to pick a weather lane. Sorry, I woke up today with spring. Anyway, I'm going to crack the door open for you, but I'm going to ask everybody to stand on the upper ledge in here, as there's something I would love to show you. I think we can pull it up. So please follow me as well. Oh, right. So, we're not wanting to bag and cut through and slice a leg or anything. Oh, wait. So I'll get you all to stand up here right there kindly. Okay. Well, we're going to put on everyone and optimistic we can get everybody onto this ledge. Well, that's far. Good. One more step back. Perfect. Nothing is going somewhere, unlike my hair. Okay. Okay. Is this secondary person? Got everybody? One last one?
No, I'm the last one.
Last one. Perfecto. All right. So, you let the door close. All right, perfect. So, just before we get to the main event, which are the gallows standing right behind me, I just wanted to point that out. I have had tours of up to 50 people before, and I cannot get 50 people to stand up here safely or physically. So I only do this when I have a small, wonderful, and awesome group of individuals such as yourselves. So, when I mentioned earlier, the jail was built during the Industrial Revolution. So that means everything you see in the jail was built to last, very strong, very secure, unlike my bank account. So, the reason why I specify that is this beam you see right here is not a support beam. This was where the unofficial hangings took place. The guards would bring people here and hang them with no record and no repercussions off of this beam as well. And you can see the rope marks. You can see the curvature and how it's a lot more worn on the right-hand side than it is on the left as well. And back then, these anti-suicide bars were never here. We, the hostel, installed these in 2012 for safety of the tours. So this is the exit open and exposed. So the guards would hang people off of this and then just drop the bodies down the shaft here as well. Or they would place people in heavy chains and shackles and just throw them off the ledge down this shaft as well, which is awful to think about. And sometimes they would open all the doors and all the floors so the whole jail could hear all the terrible things they were doing here. But I just think it's quite valuable that you get to see that as well. So with that said, everybody, welcome to gallows. This is the centerpiece right here, everybody. You're looking to get real close, take photographs. And what's neat is on the left-hand side over here is the original gears. You can actually see the gears too. And this is actually like the gallows and all its presence. And for the record, my boss is a really, really nice guy. I really, really like him. But he has said to me, just remember, Simon, the gallows still work. Okay? So remember that the next time you ask for a raise. So yeah, check it out, get close. I'll scoot along down here, keep you happy. And yeah, take your time. Soak it all in. So yeah, the gallows. They're absolutely as the well preserved gallows and most intact gallows in Canada. There's 2 or 3 other ones. 2 in Western Ontario, 1 in Northern Manitoba, and 1 in Northern Saskatchewan. But nobody goes to Saskatchewan. So I think it's quite valuable that you get to see this as well. And what's interesting is that most gallows are portable. There used to be just a 7-foot tall pole mounted on the back of the horse's buggy, and then that's the outlet of the hang people back in the day. This is one of the only structures in North America that has a built-in gallows, fully packed, absolutely ready to go on, well preserved as it possibly be.
And there was even a Zeppelin song called "The Gallows Pole" as well. And so, yeah. And when we shut down the jail back in '72, the government, Archives Canada and Heritage Canada, said to us, "You're welcome to make lots of changes to the hostel, like adding electricity and beds, but you're not changing the gallows in any way, shape, or form." So we said, "All right, cool, we'll leave the gallows alone." Except for the fact that we did add the shutters around them to protect them from the elements. And when I say the elements, I mean pigeons. And by pigeons, I mean flying rats, as my family calls them. And so, yeah, the gallows stand absolutely protected and preserved as well. Nothing else like it, especially not in Ottawa, which I still like. And gallows also have had the light installed into them. That's another only change we made. Was they used to be absolutely just dark and lit by torches. So we put a light in there so that you all could actually get to see them too, as well. And they really do stand absolutely on their own as well. And that is where Patrick James Whelan was brought and hanged back in 1869, 165 years ago. And in a few moments, I'll lead you outside from a different perspective as well. And the gallows have been featured in many documentaries and even a few movies. And there was even a play here in 1999 called Blood on the Moon that was actually filmed, televised. It starred an actor named Pierre Bro, and it was the story of Patrick James Whelan. And it was actually filmed on location right there if you're interested in that kind of thing as well. And the gallows also have earned a lot of very interesting questions in my time. I have been asked, "Oh, hey man, have you ever turned the gallows into a room?" I said, "No, man, we've never put a bed in the gallows." "No." They said, "Sorry, I have a bit of a gallows sense of humor." I said that was terrible. So I wrote it down. And 3 weeks ago, someone asked me if we've ever hung a hammock in the gallows. I said, "No." All right, well, I'll now lead you outside. But I will add one last note. You look down here, there's lots of clutter and crap, but you'll notice there's two different woods right here. That's because this is a trap door. It used to open up to what they called the cellar, which is only about 2 feet deep. And they used to put people under the floorboards underneath there and just leave them there for days, which is really gross to think about. And what's real nasty is sometimes they would open that up and just drop people from the top and try and land them into the hole like Plinko, which is really awful to think about as well. So what I'll now do is lead you outside. I hope it's not too bad. Oh, it's just a day in spring. Yeah, look at it. Exactly. Look up, please. Perfect. And look up. And look up. Look up. And please look up. All right. Forgive me, this is going to be really loud, and I apologize. On my third tour, someone put a giant Kentucky Fried Chicken sticker right here. It's like, "No KFC, you're nothing to do with it." So I took that down. So I'll step out of the way and invite you to, take pictures. Go ahead, take a look up. Everyone, that's 100% the real deal, everyone. Absolutely real. And now you might be wondering, why the window? The window was put into place because think about it as well. And what's interesting too was back in the 19th century, this art gallery was never here. back then, and neither was this fence. The fence was built over the 20th century. It was built by the prisoners themselves. They'd be given a lesser sentence if they offered services rendered to the jail. So this neighborhood beside us is called Sandy Hill, and that's literally what it used to be. It would just be sandy, grassy knolls and grassy knolls. So the reason why I point that out is what people used to do was just sit on the grassy knolls and watch executions all day long right here, as those shutters weren't here back then. So you could absolutely open and exposed. So people would just sit here and watch hangings, thus proving that YouTube is nothing new, I'm afraid. And so, yeah, I think it's really valuable that you get to see this as well. And what's fascinating, too, is during the hanging of Patrick James Whelan, I forgot to mention that during the trial of Patrick James Whelan, sitting beside the judge was Sir John A. Macdonald.